I will come back to that because I'm using the exact same situation to dissolve attachment trauma, which I'm going to talk today. Just 3 words about myself. I am mother of 4 kids. I have triplets at the age of 15 and a 17-year-old. I have been in science for 17 years at the veterinary faculty of Munich, being in physiology and immunology. And with the separation from their dad, I got into personal development and in showing up now on that level. And I would like to share my purpose with you today because I merged a method which I think we are desperately needing for establishing morality, for establishing an inner compass in ourself to serve the outer turmoil. And the inner compass was hidden under a big shit pile of trauma. And so I was planning to talk about attachment styles and attachment trauma. I think I don't even need to write it down because there is a wonderful book out there. It's called Attached. There is also the German translation. It's a different title, but Attached is a wonderful book if we want to learn about if you are an insecure, anxious, insecure, avoidant, disorganized, or a secure attached person. So I'm not going into detail into that, but it's a very important part. And it's one part of our big trauma. And thank you, Tanya, for the story. What she included is also the transgenerational dilemma, because you were talking about your grandmother, because that she was such a dominant woman. And so what I'm starting to scribble now is something a little bit insight into transgenerational trauma and why we have all that, and why I personally think that goes down to the settlement of mankind in Mesopotamia, because that's where hierarchy started, that's where patriarchy started, and that this transgenerational trauma goes back then, when we have this division of you and me and possession and money and all that kind of stuff, mine, yours, and I'd like to remember you that there is a unity behind it, that we are not separated. And the unity starts within you, feeling. So what I do in my work, and I can pass the flyers already, if you like to have one. What I do in my work is, virtually I remind people of their original soul. And like the first reincarnation, if you picture it like that, like what your true self is. And then you have that inner compass for morality, like out of the, So, what's the problem? And I don't like that word, and I use it very rarely because I rather prefer challenge than a problem. I'm sorry, you can't see that. And it's a bit low for me. So one thing, so I have like two pages of slip charts. One is transgenerational trauma inheritance. And I'm not going into much detail on that, but it's a little scientific background about what we are talking today and why it's so important to address that. I have a very, very detailed talk about that on my website. It's on the flyer. So if you want to check that, I was sharing that with the UK Integral group, which I am part in, and it's just right on my website where it says trauma therapy. So the short message is that finally the science showed, and this is like the iceberg, you've seen the iceberg in this, finally the science showed that, let's put it like this, we have negative experiences all over the conscious and the subconscious mind, okay? Of course, we have also positive experiences, which are also covering, which are supplying us with resources, with abilities, and all that kind of stuff. And and finally, we can tell by science. The epigenetics is the key word to that. Epigenetics, you probably heard about it. And I will give you just like a 2-minute intro into that. That epigenetic means that every experience we have, and also every experience our ancestors had, like times and times, because it's inherited, is in our genes, not on the DNA level, but on the acetylation and methylation level. I just scribbled it down in a second. And so that's one of the reasons why we are so adaptable, by the way, which is a good thing. Epigenetics is a good thing. But it's also one of the reasons why we kind of keep on repeating patterns in our families, because we don't know where the trauma is coming from. I haven't experienced it myself, but somehow it's there. And it's even, since I'm a naturopath, I'm also working with physical illnesses like migraines or heart strokes or, family illnesses, which are also transferred like that. So the thing is with epigenicity is like, this is DNA, okay? And the easiest way to show it, that negative experience alter our DNA by putting flags there. So there is red flags and green flags. Let's keep it very simple, okay? And so the basic principle is the more green flags we have, the healthier we are. And the more red flags we have, the less healthier we are, the more sick or depressed or not with us or whatever, disconnected, let's call it like anything, okay? And the second important part, and then the section is already over with the transgenerational trauma. The second important part is that I think I have three pages. So the second important part is that, this is about bees and flowers. So we have the egg and the sperm, okay? So that's how we all originated. And so this is from our father's side, and this is from our mother's side, okay? 2 legs. So this is us. And this is us with our DNA, having the flags, having red flags and having green flags, okay? And we got this from our experience. So I work with personal trauma, like really my lifetime, what's happening to me, rightly, what I can remember, what is in the upper part of the iceberg and all that kind of stuff. But I also work with transgenerational trauma because our parents, were providing. Oh, I put it in the egg of the mother. So this is us. We have a little bit of our father as well. And so imagine, that when you kind of visualize your ancestors in a shamanic journey, that you kind of, my mother has a father and a mother, and they have a father and a mother, and it's kind of duplicating. You know that images, like when you see your ancestors behind you, you kind of have this 10,000 of people who inherited red flags to you. Because they spent time in World War II. They spent time in World War I. They spent time during all these big events during our, planet journey, or I don't know how to call it, that experiments we are in. So at the end, we end up there. And I realized I'd like to help cleaning up the mess. Because since I'm a medical doctor, I do care about the healthcare system, and I was eager to implement a method which is sustainably keeping us away from doctors, because when we are our inner self, when we are centered, when we have our inner compass, when we know how to say no, when we know how to forgive, when we know how to really feel ourselves and connect with our true self again, we don't need a healthcare system anymore, because then we know everything. So the truth is out there. We're just kind of disconnected from that, okay? So what I realized, so I did like all the kind of coaching things. I was trained as an NLP, as a family consolator, as a hypnotherapist, as a shaman. So I kind of soaked it all in as like a big, what's the word? Sponge, thank you. And I realized when I'm using the techniques individually, the clients keep on coming to me like every 4 or 5 months, because one time they have like a chronic fatigue, the other time they have a nutrition issue, the third time they have like a burnout, the fourth they have a relationship problem. And I thought, I'm not going to spend my whole life with just, I want to make them independent. And the independence is one of my highest value. That's why I wanted to supply it to them. And I'm also training all the methods, because I don't want to. I have a very good life balance, and I like to live that. But that's why I'm training it to kind of duplicate it. One of my coaches, like trainers, said at that time, and may I touch you? He said, like, the easiest way to heal someone is you are healed. Probably Jesus did it like that. Why doesn't that work? You have a construct in your mind. So the mind monkey, the mind is in the way. The mind is in the way of the healing. And this is a kind of an emotion. This is a CV. So this is today, and this is your day of birth, okay? And it took you 30, 40, 50, whatever years to really put glucose into storing that, ATP, like memorizing that stuff. You have all these memories, they make you a story, and you think you are that story, but it's just a story. But it's so difficult to disconnect from that story, because we get triggered, we are emotionally related. There is some injury which is still not healed. And so I realized I need to structure the method itself from all the all the fractals of the trainings I got to something which is helping also the mind letting go. So the whole thing starts by writing an emotional CV, like a resume, like a whole life. And people coming to me are coming with like 3 pages, 20 pages. That kind of makes that the time how long we're working. Usually it's a day. So we talk about 12 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours. And it's not very stressful, because you tell your own story. You know your own story. It's not, and we don't go into detail of all of it, but we see the patterns. And that's one of a breakthrough about that, because when you experience, who is going to a therapist regularly? A few people. Yes, or have been. Okay. So you kind of start a session, you have an hour, you go with an intro, and then you talk about that for 30 minutes, and then go with an outro, and the next week, kind of, you start all over again. And I was fed with that. I was tired with that. I was thinking, there needs to be, and having the triplets really helped, because I kind of, efficiency is my second name, because that's how I was trained from the life. And so I thought, we could just wrap it up in one emotional CV. So in principle, when we put the iceberg here again, we have the negative experiences in both sides, and what you remember is up here. So in your CV, you kind of put the negativities here, from up here, because that's what you memorize, okay? Yeah, sure. You cannot tell anything about here, it's hidden, but we will cover it. What's the time, by the way?
We're 13 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes left. Okay, cool. Yes, so we use that. So you come to my place, and you only start like 2 weeks before, because it can also kind of put a, come up things which you cannot hold. So I beg you to not dig further, because I'm very good in holding space, and that's probably the reason why I was in Israel yesterday, I can hold the container with you. So if there's anything very deep, so I'm working with abuse, I'm working with the worst things and people sharing everything with me, and I just hold the container, because I disconnect from myself and go into the void of awareness, and I just enter that person from there. So I'm in the non-dual room when I'm doing that. So I hold the container, and then we go deeper during a session, and. So this work is about 70% of the time. So this process that we talk through that I can feel your emotions, that I can decide how deep do we go. It's very, very trauma friendly, because it's like when I feel that you're dysregulated, I both regulate you, and I since it's a time-restricted thing, we don't kind of stir the mud all the time, because this is not there's no reason for doing it. So we don't stir, but we touch, and we see the bigger patterns. And one of the things which are, I come back in a second. Doesn't work. So one of the things, I hold it. So one of the things which are happening after the process, oh my God, I'm losing everything here. Yeah, like this. I'm losing that. It doesn't, Yeah, we need to just put it here and get a minute more. So one of the outcomes are, and I'm coming back to the method in a second. So one of the outcomes are that, this is today, this is the future, this is the past, that we kind of, when you see the bigger patterns, and when you see it in one session, you can approach it from your mind side and from the emotional side, and yet you see that the patterns kind of replicate. So it's all about wounded childhood. It's all about I have fear of being rejected, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And so the one of the major outcomes is that we are able to enter a meta perspective, a permanent meta perspective. So one of the risks is that you kind of feel a little schizophrenic after it, because you are in a constant, or can be in a constant 24/7 meta perspective, both living that life and observing you from up there. So one of the effects is that you are realizing and feeling, and not just by mind, but by heart and soul, that this is just a story. And then it makes life so much easier. And so much, this is just a story. And when you go back to that, you can surf the waves. You kind of encounter new challenges, but the sentence behind that is like, I wonder what that is all about, and I will figure it out. So why we missed the train to Siofok and ended up in hitchhiking. Ending up, so it was like, what's the flow there? Because that's one of the other things. You're in constant flow after that. But it doesn't feel like the perfect flow, but it's a flow, and you trust in that, and that's what's happening. So coming back to that, one. So I'm used to messes. 4 kids in a house, you're used to messes. So coming back to that. So what do we do? How much time do I have?
40 past now.
Sorry?
It's 40 past now.
Ah, okay, 50 minutes. Cool. So we're talking through that, okay? I attach, or I show how to that. We decide about the depth. We decide about I'm explaining, it can, that's a cool thing. It can be used for anyone. She doesn't need to be integral at all, because you explain things about drama triangles, about attachment styles, about forgiveness work, about, guilt and shame, and that's what I share with the client, that the person can start rethinking the concept. And the basis is love, actually, acceptance, pure acceptance. So when I'm in that humble state and that non-dual state, I am pure love, covered in a body, and anyone does feel that in that sacred space. And that makes yourself in a very, very open and receiving also position, because you feel the most accepted you have ever been. And then you are able to receive that information about drama triangles, because you're not in a triggered situation. You're in a very calm, you're on top of the roof. You're in that calm space where you're regulated, where you are seen, where you're loved. And that's what I provide as a container for healing. Only one day, then you're independent of myself. There is two after constellations, just to fix a few things, but that's it. So what do we do? During our talking through that, we are deciding for 3 different things. We are deciding for objects. So this is from shamanic work. I started as a pain therapist, and I realized that when you put pain out of your body by pulling out nails which have a certain size and a color, and the visualization between that, it really works, especially for chronic pains. That, I don't know if you heard about that technique. I learned it from my shaman. And I realized we can do it with the same pain. It doesn't have to be physical pain. It's any trauma we have, we can visualize and put into an object which contains the power and the sadness and all the emotions we experience. So it's a very abstract way of doing it, but it's a very potent way of doing it, because we feel it, okay? So what we do is, during that process, we end up with, so I just put squares and whatever objects, hearts or whatever, or not hearts, we put broken hearts in there. So we have gathered all that objects, and it's about 30, 40 objects. And it's a fun part, by the way, because we kind of, play with words. It's I don't know, last time I put the Peter Poly narcissist axe in there. And we kind of get the energy with the word, because we need to use that for the second part, which is a transformative part. So the word needs to be really hit the ground of all the entanglement around that special experience, okay? So we find the words, it's sometimes the object, it's sometimes more than one. That's one part. The second part, and we got a perfect demonstration from Tanya and Kim here, is a constellation with relationship persons. So it's not just about relationships, but when we are related to our mother, our father, our brother, our sister, important persons in our upbringing, there needs to be that part which we got demonstrated here, that forgiveness part. But it's not like an everyday practice. It's like a final closing, letting go, disentanglement, detachment. I'm not responsible about that. I'm not responsible about my father, mother, in an energetic way. So that is very important, and it looks like what we saw before, that the client is sitting there, and I am representative. So I am Kim, or the mother, and so we do that. We pack that boxes, we do that forgiveness work, because otherwise we cannot let go. And so there is that kind of preparation we talk through that you are able to forgive. Because that's why I'm telling you about drama triangles, about patterns and all that kind of, and you come to that state where Tanya described, that you are seeing your father as the wounded child, that you're seeing, because we include genograms in there. So we include like what's the life of your grandmother like? How was the upbringing? So we do the whole thing because it's so important that you understand and feel your parents more, that you understand and feel your ex-partners more. And yet that you can see them from the level of love, that it's just a wounded child in an adult body. And that's the importance behind the detachment, because otherwise we cannot forgive. And you saw how it works. And that's what we do. And we do it like for the most important persons. And I'm the representative for that person. So I'm changing in being a representative. So that's one. The second important part of preparing it is, I would call it mini constellations, okay? Mini constellations with the basis of forgiveness and love, which we prepared that it's able. And it's not coming from the mind. And when people do that from the mind, I stop them. I say, no, I don't feel it. You don't believe what you say. And so that's really important, because I sense into you and I feel you, and then I guide you, and then we just do a little, how to say, you know what I mean. We kind of get you there, that you really believe and feel that, because this is the importance behind it. Okay, so we do that mini constellation, and in part of that mini constellations, the third important part is power objects. So you get power objects of the people you always longed for. Power objects. So like what Kim said, that I give you my power back. So like, and that's, for example, something, from your father, you always wanted like acceptance. And so you get, oh my God, German words. Thank you. You get like a certificate of you are accepted, and it's signed with your father's signature, and it's a very, very wonderfully engraved and pictured certificate. And during that process of constellation, as a representative, I'm handing you over that certificate, and you have it like in your bag and keep it in a very, very, on your altar or with yourself, and that changes so much. That's kind of a permanent healing of the wounds and of the words you never received. You need to receive that words once in your life, and you feel at the end that you received it, because the story is just a story, and you are here, and you can always, Hannah said it on the first day, it's never too late for a healthy childhood. And that's how it works. Because you step back at the time, this is timeline work, by the way, who wants to know. And you step back, you get your resources and keep them forever, okay? So we have like objects from your related or relatives or ex-partners and all that kind of stuff. And you also, out of your kindness and generosity, also pass them a power object. It's not just you're receiving, you're playing with them. So you pass them like a white rose for forgiveness, or you pass them anything you can imagine. That's the fun part of my work, by the way. It's very creative. And we kind of gamble with the ideas. What could you give to your father? And you feel like it's an equal, it's eye level. You give something to him and I give something to back. Okay. How many minutes?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Like a little bit less.
Okay. So that's kind of the preparation of that. And we write that all down, that you feel safe. That you feel safe in that we can keep the structure during the trans part of it. The trans part, like the hypnotherapy or whatever, it's a little bit of trance, but I get you in. That you picture a box, okay? You picture a box, and that box is valid for like a certain amount of lifetime, okay? So we pack boxes covering the whole lifetime, which is important because I haven't gotten on that. Well, how do we get that in there in a second? But this is important that we don't have any gaps here because I don't want to miss out any of the minimal minuses here. So I don't want to have gaps. So it's really like, the first box is from today to, normally I start with the beginning of COVID, like March 2020, so people can remember that. And then it's kind of like the beginning of that relationship and the beginning of da-da-da and school time. So it's like 4 or 5 boxes. It's not that many. You imagine the box, and now the other important part is coming, the embodiment, okay? Embodiment means you need to feel, because hypnotherapy alone doesn't work sustainably, because our mind is kind of trapped away again. So the embodiment part is that really picture and feel yourself how you put those objects into the box, okay? So you really feel in your body that you did the work. It's not hard work, but it's still something. And that you are having that all very safely in that box. And now a secret comes. This is something I invented myself. This is just all a combination of all the stuff I learned, but I realized that it's suiting very good together. Then there is a magic happening. So the magic is that we have an object which is for the subconscious mind, and it's wood wool. Do you know wood wool? It's kind of a stuffing material. When you fill up boxes, that the content is safe. So wood wool is like a wooden organic stuffing material, okay? And the magic sentence is, everything we forgot, everything we did not talk about, everything which is just hidden in your subconscious mind, now can attach to the wood wool. It's like electrons flying out of your body, and you feel it, and you have the safety feeling that, oh God, finally my subconscious mind has an object. It was waiting for your lifetime probably, that there is something possible to let go on that side. And that really makes a difference. That you put your subconscious negativities also into that box. What we do then is you pack the box yourself. So I'm just guiding. I'm just like a guide, nothing more, and holding space. You pack the stuff in the box. You pack the box. You wrap it. And then you do it with your most powerful weapon. What's your most powerful weapon? Your breath. You destroy it with your breath. So you reduce it. The box with all these negative objects, put it one last courageous time into your body, and then you breathe in and let it explode. And you feel all that. I feel with you. I will also work with with people who cannot feel emotions. So then I'm mirroring them, and I tell them, now you don't need to breathe more. I kind of help them along, because it also works for any kind of rational type. That's what's important for me, because originally I created that for my ex-husband, but I think he's never doing it. I realized the same. You cannot change people if they don't want to. But I wanted to have very structured. I wanted to have it also available for Germans, and any other Western, So, you destroy the boxes, and coming back to the transgenerational part, and I think that's kind of getting too long. I have the talk for an hour on my website, I told you. This is step 1. This is about personal trauma, okay? Which is important because the mind took all the efforts to store that. The second one is the embryonic trauma, and I do that because I need to work with physical illness or distress, because realize, when you were growing in your mom's belly, this is an embryo growing, by the way, then you were attacked or influenced or whatever by red flags. There was stress, there was the bigger brother, there was envy, there was, nicotine, alcohol, whatever. So during you build up your body structure, you got all these epigenetic factors, and there is good science out there that psychotherapy can delete epigenicity. And that's what I do here. So we put out that by very simply just one box, the embryonic box, where we just put wood wool in there. Because we don't know, no one knows, but our or unconscious mind at that stage does know it. And that's kind of a... And why is that also important? It's a connection to our systemic healing, our transgenerational healing. I'm ready in a minute. So part 3, and I need to get you a little more overview about that chaos because no one... Okay, so we had that, the CV, that embryonic, and now we end up at that point where to connect to our transgenerational and ancestral and reincarnational trauma. And that's the shortest version, or the shortest, because the one other was 70, 80, 90% of the time, you're with me. And the last one is kind of very potent visualization. Because I was wondering myself, being a medical doctor, how does the first heartbeat start? Okay? What's the start of the first heartbeat? No one knows. We know when you are having a heart attack that you have like defibrillators on underground subway stations and all that kind of stuff that you kind of can resurrect the person by this electric shock. So, but we don't know where that electric impulse comes from at first. What's activating that heartbeat? We don't know. So in my belief system, it's the soul kind of plopping into the heart. And for people who are not believing in anything, I say, imagine a Newton pendulum. You know a Newton pendulum where you have these 5 balls where you put one and then it just... You know that? Okay. So imagine just a ball coming into a system like the heart and starting the heartbeat, okay? Everyone can do that. You don't have to be a spiritual person. So let's imagine like, it's a sentence which you know from coaching. And so I realized that I can use that ball for one last thing here. So that ball kind of is falling into our heart. This is our soul. The soul came with a backpack. The soul came with a long transgenerational trauma. The soul came with, with all the sorrows of all the generations, and if you believe in reincarnation, even more than the genes, okay? So how do we cover that? And I realized, at that point where you already destroyed all that and felt how it feels, you feel a relief, it's an instant relief, all that it's just one other visualization, and I call it the marble race. A marble race, it's a kid's game. It's a kid's game where you put a marble in a funnel, okay? In a funnel, and it rolls down, okay? And that marble ended up in your heart about 4 weeks after you were perceived. And it had a journey behind, so an ancestral journey, an epigenetics journey, and a reincarnational journey. So all that journey kind of landed as a backpack, as scratches and inches and, on your marble. When you're carrying that marble around with you, that's why it feels so heavy, And the easiest way, and it works, and I have as I said, I only have 5-star testimonials. You can ask Elke Feine this morning, Integral Politics. She was working with me for 6 weeks ago, and she's kind of recommending me to anyone out there. So please approach her and ask her, how do I work and how does it feel, if you like. She's open for that. And I did it for her because I wanted to have Integral Politics to be a breakthrough, and she needed to be herself for that, and not the restricted and hurt, wounded child. And I love just seeing her on stages and doing keynotes, and So what we do here is we push the marble upwards the marble race and just breathe out, let go. And at that stage where we already wait for 8 hours, you kind of let go anything. It's easy. It's easier than you think because it's just a visualization and where we have visual minds. And then we are up here. And I'll tell you a secret now, but normally I don't tell the clients when they're with me because this is like the surprise moment, what we do here. What we do here is we transform that marble into a glowing, shining little sun you hold in your hands. And we kind of polish the surface. We blow it up. We make it bigger. We make it shiny. And people at that point don't know that they work with their own soul. They just forgot about it. And then we put that marble back in, also with the visualization, back into the heart of you today. So it's kind of a journey around where we start with that hurt, wounded child, cleaned up, reconnected with the true soul, with our very first, with the spark of the source we are, because we are just sparks. So we're showing up as sparks, each and everyone in a different color. And last word to that, and then I'm open for questions if there's still time. I wrote a book with a kind of an eco-engineer, because we realized, it was a comment up here, that we need to have faster methods to overcome all the crises. And when we are all reconnected to our own personal purpose and show up like this, because we can now, we don't have the attachment anymore, because we know who we are, we like to present ourselves in our shining light, then we can overcome the meta crisis. I think I stop here. Thank you for your attention, and if there's a question, I'm just staying in the room if you want to have some questions. Otherwise, you're invited for lunch.